Okay, very good. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this very important topic on SBA policy updates. I would like to introduce a couple of the team members that helped to put this together. The This is our first training with SBA and the Ohio University Apex Accelerator for 2025. We have monthly trainings on government-related topics. And when we came together as a group in October, one of the things that we discussed was all of the changes to the SBA small business programs. And we are
Mhm.
lucky enough to have Kumi Age with us today from Washington, D.C., to talk about those policy updates. But I would like for my colleague Shonda Harris just to give a shout out, and then Sharon too. The three of us are working together on this. And let me turn my phone off.
Good morning, everyone. So glad that you joined us.
And Sharon, I'll go ahead actually and introduce you right after this. So what we're going to do today, primarily the bulk of the webinar will be on SBA policy updates. I am introducing us today. Then I will have Sharon talk about the Ohio University or the Apex Accelerator at Ohio University. And Shonda will then be monitoring the chat. So as you have questions, if you could please put them into the chat, Shonda will be monitoring those and answering them when Kumi has a break that seems like it would make sense to ask a question. So,
At the end of each section, we'll address
okay.
the questions.
All right, very good. And so without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce Sharon Hopkins. She is the director of the Apex Accelerator at Ohio University.
Hi, thank you, Jill. Welcome. We look forward to this event every year. We do this about at least once a year, it feels like. And this is always a really good event to learn about the latest changes with the certifications at SBA. And with that, I wanted to give just a brief overview of the Apex Accelerator at Ohio University. We are funded to give small businesses in Ohio the training and support to bid government jobs. So everything that goes into that and helping you win that contract, we can assist with in some way. We are a bit limited in that, we can help you understand your solicitation documents, and we can help you walk through those processes, get registered at the right places, create capability statements, which is a resume of your company that you would utilize in the government arena to talk to government officials. And then we can look over your proposal and give you tips and guidance on things that it might be lacking, and those kinds of things. We can't write it for you, but we certainly can give you advice and guidance on writing one and the things that you need to watch out for and look for and have in that proposal. And we also help you look at certifications. We kind of talk to you about the certifications that you, as a business owner, may fit into a set aside category. We inform you of that. It's your decision, obviously, if you go after those certifications, but we're here to answer questions and to make sure that you understand the things that you need to upload for your certification application and those kinds of things. So one of the other things we do is training, which is what we're doing here today. And with that, I will turn this back over to Jill. The other thing, I guess, is this recording will be on our website. We also have a lot of other information on our website, as well as upcoming trainings throughout the state. And the website for us is apex, apex.ohio.edu. So with that, now I will really turn it back over to you, Jill.
All right, and just a thought, you can, if you could put that into the chat, I'm sure that will come up several times. Just the link to Apex Accelerators, Ohio University Apex Accelerators website. So before I formally introduce Kumi, if everyone could turn off their cameras, please, including me. It just makes it easier for me to be able to navigate the slides. So there we go, and I'm going to turn mine off and get your presentation up, Kumi. Hang on just a moment. Hit share. All right. Can everybody see that?
Not yet, Jill.
Okay. Let me make sure I'm hitting
It's
one.
coming up. It's loading. Yep, looks good.
All right. All right. And Kumi, I am going to introduce you and then turn it over to you. Obviously, if you want to have your camera on, that is totally up to you. But Kumi Age works with the U.S. Small Business Administration, Government Contracting and Business Development Office of Policy Planning and Liaison as a procurement policy analyst, attorney. Her main role with the agency includes drafting regulations and engaging agencies on small business policy. Kumi previously worked with SBA's Office of Hearing and Appeals as an attorney advisor, where she primarily assisted judges in drafting decisions and conducting legal research. She is a graduate of the George Washington Law University, where she was a senior articles editor for the Public Contracts Law Journal. She also has an undergraduate degree from the University of Maryland, College Park, with a double major in political science and communications, and she is an active member of the Maryland Bar. Kumi, we are very happy to have you here today, and I will just go ahead and turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jill, and good morning. Thank you for having me. As was previously discussed, my name is Kumi Age. I am a policy analyst here with SBA. Our office, particularly the Office of Policy Planning and Liaison, what we do mainly is we track legislation, which is what we're going to be talking about today. We draft SBA regulations, and we work primarily with the FAR Council in making sure that the regulations that we've drafted are properly implemented into the FAR. That's one side, the policy side. Our office also deals with the side standards relating to NAICS codes, and we pretty much set agency level prime small business and small disadvantaged business goals for the SBA scorecard as well. So those are some of our three main functions. But today, going back to what we're actually doing today, I will be discussing the legislative and regulatory changes that have come up for small businesses last year. We had a ton of changes last year, and some of the ones that you can expect that are going to be coming up for this year. Next slide, please. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the legislative actions. So every year, Congress introduces what's called the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, and that document is typically hundreds of pages long that gives agencies an idea of kind of the roadmap that they want us to go, or the direction they want us to go in. But it's normally passed towards the end of the year. And that document pretty much sets guidelines for policies and military spending, essentially. And sometimes here and there, our office here at SBA are required to make some updates and policy changes and some regulatory changes. The NDAA is always introduced earlier in the year, and then it is always passed towards the end of the year. So last year, we had about over 20 proposed changes from the draft NDAA, and ultimately Congress landed on only 4 of those changes passing, and those are the 4 that you're seeing on this PowerPoint right now. All of the changes relate to DoD contracting, so that means that we here at SBA on the policy side won't be I guess there's nothing that Congress wants us to do relating to the NDAA for this year when it comes to military spending. All of it is relating to the DoD. So the first and this is, I will also note, this has passed, and this means that you can expect the DoD to start implementing these changes sometime down the road in the upcoming year, this year, next year. The first thing we have is asking that the DoD expand their pilot program for small businesses to actually have access to what is sometimes considered classified information. So, shared commercial classified infrastructure. This is in a hope, what we're thinking that Congress hopes to happen here is that small businesses are essentially expanded more opportunities to access and compete for classified contracts. Because if you don't have any access to, the information on a classified contract as a small business, how can you actually compete for it? So what Congress has asked the DoD to essentially do here is, with their pilot program, expand that opportunity to small businesses. That's Section 874. Then we have Section 875, which is also a win for small businesses. Congress is asking that the DoD start drafting their contracts in clear, concise, and well-organized ways, to the maximum extent possible. Of course, some terms just have to be, some terms are just, not just boilerplate, but they're essential to DoD contract and solicitation drafting. But what Congress is essentially wanting DoD to do here is to, start writing things in simpler, plainer language, so that, you and me, people like you and me, or small businesses who want to get into, DoD contracting, is able to see a solicitation and it's easier to read, or it's legible. It's not just all legalese. And that's Section 875. So next we have Section 876, which would require that the DoD draft and create what's called a Small Business Bill of Rights that will specifically target ways to resolve customer service issues and conflicts between DoD and small business contractors. And so, as you see here, this is a push to, help small businesses really know who they're talking to, help them find points of contact where they can resolve some of the issues that they're dealing with, if they're having contract issues, if they're having solicitation issues. And so this particular, or the NDAA, actually, you can go back and read it, it's linked at the top, actually also provides very specific rights that they want DoD to include in this entire Bill of Rights. And amongst some of those actual provisions require that DoD create a resolution process for small business contractors and, other conflicts that they may have with contracting officers. Ensure that contractors are aware of their right to assistance from the agency, and provide the small business contractors with a point of contact for almost every area of the contracting process. So if you're dealing with OSDBUs, if you're dealing with PCRs, if you're dealing with contracting officers, contracting specialists, this Bill of Rights is essentially, and I will note, this is only DoD specific so far, it's not agency-wide, but this Bill of Rights will essentially make it easier for small business contractors who contract directly with the DoD, have more direct access to, more direct access to the agency to resolve conflicts. So the last thing we have is the Section 888, which relates to requiring that DoD track awards that are made through other transaction authority, awards made to directly to small businesses. So essentially, they want DoD to create a way to track how many of these types of awards, OTAs, other transaction authority awards, are going to small businesses. How many small businesses are actually getting them? So this actually, before I end here, I will also note that the NDAA, like I said, is essentially a roadmap for SBA and other agencies on where Congress wants updates and changes Congress wants us to do for the next year or next following years. But throughout the year, Congress also will introduce a bill, whether in the House or in the Senate, that relates directly to small businesses. And we over at SBA, we keep track of every single bill that is issued or that is presented on the House floor or Senate floor. We keep track of each one of those. And as you know, this is a new year. This is a new Congress. So no major bills have been introduced yet that I'm presenting today. Otherwise, this particular section of the presentation is usually 12 to 15 slides long, because there's always something introduced every few weeks. But because we're in a new year, nothing has been introduced that we're tracking right now that we feel is a major change for small businesses. But that doesn't mean that we won't expect anything coming down the road in this new year. So that kind of pretty much concludes what we have so far, what you can expect so far when it comes to legislative actions. Was there any questions related to this before we move on to the executive actions?
I have a question about that section 876, the Small Business Bill of Rights.
Mhm.
And then so you said if we clicked on that HR 5009 at the top, that'll take us to the whole thing. But is it outline, do you know if it outlines like step 1 for a small business if they had a conflict, where they go? Is that like on the agency website or that? So just more of the minutia of that, I guess.
So actually, that's a great question. So with Congress, the way they usually write these types of I guess, guidelines, they really want DoD to do it on their own, to create those types of details. But what Congress has done is pretty much create like an outline for DoD, and then DoD will go in and fill in the blanks. So right now, there's no direct address, there's no actual people named in the document. But if you read it, or when you read it, you'll see that they have specific things that Congress has specific things that they want DoD to include, which tells me usually they don't have so much detail, but that tells me that they really want to resolve the issues that come up between small businesses and DoD contracts, because a lot of it was pretty much spelled out. They want a resolution process. They want it's pretty detailed. They want to make sure that small businesses are getting the resources they need, knowing that they have rights to resources, knowing that they have rights to contact people in the agency, and they, if they're getting ignored, they should have the point of contact. They have a right to know who's, the head of the agency, who's the OZBU, who's their direct line of contact, who's the contracting officer's supervisor. They have rights to know this information to resolve conflicts. And so that's one interesting thing I saw in reading that section. So I hope that answers your question. It wasn't much detail. So in summary, they didn't provide too much detail in like step 1 and step 2 of the resolution process, but they provided enough detail to kind of tell DoD that, hey, we want a resolution process.
All right, thank you.
Okay, if there's no questions, we could go on to the next slide. So now we're going to talk about the executive branch. Excuse me. I don't know. I just got a code out of nowhere. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the executive actions that came out from last year. And so just as a background, so as we know, SBA, we are an executive agency. So we receive changes and guidance from the White House at any time. And we implement those changes. Rather, we can receive it through memos from their Office of Federal Procurement Policy, OFPP, or we can receive that guidance through executive orders, any type of, memo, document of some sort that comes out of the White House, pretty much telling us, to do something, change something, provide something. We, as an executive agency, we do that. So because we've just moved into a new administration, we don't have guidance yet on what things that changes or updates that the White House wants yet. But these next few slides kind of provide what the previous administration wanted us to do and how we were able to implement those changes. So the first one, this OFPP memo came out around the same time last year. So, we've worked on implementing a lot of some of these changes. I will note this was probably the biggest action that came out of the whole previous administration when it came to government contracting. And it's this big movement on multiple award contracts. As we know, these MAC contracts or multiple award contracts have been getting really popular, and the government is more engaged in what is called category management, which is where they're consolidating contracts between multiple agencies and across government departments, into these one large MAC vehicle. And then from there, they're issuing one contract or work orders or on the order level. And so, one of the consequences of the category management consolidation is that it makes it harder or can make it harder for small businesses to get in on these MAC awards at the contract base. We've seen success in some small businesses from these MACs, but if you are not already at the contract base, as in if you haven't received, one of the MAC award contracts, and it's very hard to go and try to get a contract from the order level. So, it's harder, and essentially it makes it harder for new opportunities. So what OFPP did was they issued this memo this same time last year, and they outlined 3 ways that they wanted agencies to kind of increase small business participation in MACs. And particularly, they wanted to focus on new entrants, which are newer small businesses getting in on these MAC contracts. So the first thing was award new MACs, essentially, and hope that, by awarding these new MACs, we can get more small businesses engaged. So, engage more small business specialists and representatives very early on, especially the OSDBUs on the newer MACs, and consider doing on-ramps when they're developing at the acquisition strategies level. So on-ramps are when you're introducing a new seat after the contract has started or after the contract has been awarded. But I will note about on-ramps, they make the agency very susceptible to protest, and so which can delay the whole contracting process. So this particular request is very much considered on a cautionary scale. The next thing they wanted was for awards, the award of orders that are already on existing MACs. So here, OFPP wanted to emphasize the rule of 2, which essentially means, in the rule of 2, means in the market research section of a contract administration, at the market research level, if 2 or more small businesses can actually complete the contract, then that solicitation must be set aside for small businesses. That is, the rule of 2. And, we've kind of started getting away from that. And, there's been some question on what that means, some gray areas. So what the previous administration wanted us to really do was, try to get more small businesses onto these MACs, onto these existing MACs. And so we at SBA actually issued a proposed rule on the rule 2 back in October of last year, so October 25th, 2024. We were able to get that rule pushed out, that proposed rule, this is a proposed rule out. And I will talk more about that rule and that proposed rule in another slide. But I just wanted to, briefly mention that, SBA, we had the direction and we pushed forward, and we issued a proposed rule under this particular request. And then the last category is best-in-class contracts, or BICs. So the downside is that you only get new entrants for best-in-class contracts. So, if they don't have new entrants as new small businesses, then they should consider using set-asides, essentially, where the White House is saying use set-asides to find new small businesses. Next slide, please. So these next 2 particular slides, they were issued under the previous administration, as I mentioned, but they were released last year, November 29th of last year, 2024. And they're essentially just two guidance documents really aimed at expanding federal support for small businesses overall. So this first memo outlines a new standardized approach to federal procurement forecast, and it essentially requires agencies to improve their forecast content by FY 2025, quarter three of FY 2025. Forecast meaning improve what can be expected down the road from how can I say strengthen federal procurement forecast, as in provide more details on what can be expected down the road, and the OFPP wants this by FY 2025. Another thing is to enhance the timelines, and they want this by quarter one of 2026. So they're pretty much creating this timeline of how they want agencies to be up to date ultimately by 2026 to have this centralized area where people can access and see forecasts and government contracting opportunities. So creating a government contracts opportunity tool by FY 2026. The second memo, next slide, please. So the second memo addresses subcontracting opportunities, noting that first it notes that small businesses did receive a record $86.4 billion in federal subcontracts in 2023. Now that's a big deal, that's probably, I think, the most it's ever received. But the White House was saying there's still a gap and there's still ways to push, get more money into the hands of small businesses. And subcontracting is always the first way to really get in as a small business, subcontracting with a contractor to get these federal contracts. So what the previous administration did was issue this memo to kind of create guidelines and outline these 4 ways that we can shrink that gap and really get that money out to small businesses through these subcontracts. And that will conclude the executive actions that we have and that we've implemented so far. Does anyone have any questions related to the executive actions? Is there anything in the chat?
There are no questions in the chat, but I'd like to just add, I think it's great that they are adding, it's good to see about the considering monetary incentives to prime contractors, just because just the landscape of how everything is going and what you were saying about the max, and it just really is making it more difficult, more challenging for our small businesses to go after, especially winning their first award. And then Jill and I work with 8A firms, so it's really good to see that they're trying to bolster primes to give more subcontracting opportunities to our small businesses.
Yes. Yes, and this is a very detailed, well-written out memo with data as well. So it's worth a read if anyone's interested in some things that may be coming down. Like I said, this is just this memo came out November 29th, 2024. So it was a little later on the year. So these changes, we'll see where they're going to go, how they're going to be implemented. But this is just an idea of what could come down the pipeline. Any more questions, or you can go to the next slide?
You can go, to the next slide.
Perfect. So next we have pretty much the bulk of this presentation, which is the SBA regulatory actions and their changes there. These are changes that SBA implements themselves based on guidance that we get, rather from Congress, rather from the White House, or guidance that we get from comments and concerns of the small business firms themselves. And so a lot of changes happened last year, and so there's a lot of slides related to this, so I'll take my time here and really get into a lot of the details. So Congress, let's get started. So Congress excuse me, SBA, sorry, Congress is still on my mind. SBA spent the last year working on our certification program. That was the majority of the things that we wanted to get kind of cleared up last year. So you'll see that a lot of our programs have been edited in different ways. And one of those was the service disabled program. We issued a rule and last year, pretty much saying that if you are an SDVOSB, you can only self-certify up until December 22nd, or you should have submitted a certification application by that time. So that time has already passed. That was last year, December 22nd of 2024. SDVOSBs had until that time to self-certify, and it will actually count as credit for the agency. So now, as of today or as of December 23rd, if you are self-certifying as a SDVOSB, that does not count towards any agency credit. So there's essentially no incentive for an agency to select your particular firm. So in other words, service disabled veterans had until December 22nd to submit their application. And even if their application was still pending, they can continue to self-certify until there was a determination made. But if you didn't submit an application by that deadline, then your self-certification is pretty much null and void after December 23rd. Next slide, please. So we also had this interim final rule was issued specifically for the WASB program. As we know, if you have to recertify for the WASB program every 3 years. SBA recognizes that they've had a huge backlog, and we're still working on getting through the WASB applications, the WASB application process. So what the administrator wanted to do was go ahead and issue this interim final rule last year, back in March of earlier last year, implemented this interim final rule that essentially postpones that recertification requirement until for a year, if I'm not mistaken, extends it until SBA is able to resolve the backlog. Next slide, please. So we also had a final rule issued for WASB relating to women-owned small businesses and refining it. Essentially, what we want to do is make sure that all of our programs the regulations with all of our programs are essentially the same. So the requirements, we want to really create a centralized and unified set of rules and regulations for all of our programs. Beforehand, there was some differences between, being a woman-owned small business and being a service disabled-owned small business. But now last year, what we wanted to do with all of our certification programs is make sure that, every program is being reviewed, every application is being reviewed under the same type of regulatory requirement. Outside of being a woman, outside of being service disabled, you are being reviewed under the same regs. So this is what we did with this particular rule. We wanted to align it with our SDVOSB program. So this rule kind of summarized or finalized what the program definitions in the program and statutory references. And the purpose of this rule was to align our regulations with our other existing programs. So the biggest change here was to adjust the measures of what it means to have outside employment or to allow outside employment for women-owned small businesses. And we aligned that definition with how it is defined in our SDVOSB program. So outside employment is not allowed. That's just a known thing, but there is an exception. And this rule would essentially allow WASB, a woman-owned small business, to justify their reason for outside employment and show how that doesn't affect their ownership and control of the small business. This is a change that we just added to the WASB program. It was already in SDVOSB. This exception was already there. But with this final rule, we just wanted to align both of those programs and make sure that, that outside employment exception also also falls within the WASB program. Other changes we made here was this final rule defines the definition of what it means to be an interested party. In order to bring a status protest against a woman-owned small business, you essentially have to be, as your business, you need to be a certified woman-owned small business or have a pending application with SBA to have a right to file a status protest against another woman-owned small business that has won the award that you've bid for. So in other words, we're saying to be an interested party to file a protest against the awardee, you yourself have to be certified in that program. That is another thing that happened. And this is a final rule. So these rules are in effect as of the date, December 4th, 2024. Other thing, this rule also explains how and when a woman-owned small business must update their status if there is a final determination made that they no longer meet the requirements of a WASB. So if you are going through the application process and SBA determines that you no longer meet the qualifications as a woman-owned or WASB, this rule lays out and outlines what steps your business must now take as a result of that determination. So if there's a woman-owned small business on here, I think this is worth reading and looking over. And like I said, the links are up to the left. And it's definitely worth looking at, readings and looking over. Next slide, please. So next, SBA we issued our final rule. This was back in October on the lower tier subcontracting. So this is another win for subcontracting. This rule would essentially provide credit for lower tier subcontracting. It would allow for prime contractors to take credit for that lower tier subcontracting, and clarifies that, of course, this is only for individual plans and not for commercial plans. Also, you have to record your election in the subcontracting plan, and it has to be set in your subcontracting goals. But essentially what this means is that prime contractors can get credit for their lower tier subcontracting. And this, would be a big deal because it's, in other words, promoting primes to go and find small businesses or go and find contractors that could be small businesses. I will add, with this particular change, what are the next steps? Next, this would need to go into the FAR. And that is another process within itself that takes time. And once it goes into the FAR, it would also need to be reflected in our electronic database where you submit your subcontracting plan, which is the Electronic Subcontracting Report System, ESRS. This change would need to be reflected in that system. And so the reason I'm saying that is, even though we do have this final roll out and it came out in October, it is not tech enabled yet, and it will take some time to actually be implemented. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is related to our size standards. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, our office also sets the size standards. That's the other half of our office. And so every 5 years, SBA reviews and sets new size standards. So for 2024, we just wrapped up on the last part of the review and just changed a few things. We changed the 504 loan program size standards to 20 million on tangible net worth and 6.5 million on net income. We also changed the threshold for SBA guaranteed surety bonds sized to 9 million and 14 million if the agency certified that the guarantee is necessary. So those are major changes just based on our reviews of size standards. Next slide, please. Okay, so this other HubZone rule and other programs was oh, sorry. Are we keeping track of the questions? Oh, I see. Okay, great.
I am.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chandra. Okay, so this particular slide, and it's about 5 slides long, was the major change that we did over at SBA last year. And it was a final rule issued on August 2024. And this particular slide and the next 5 kind of detail everything that was changed. But it's a long text, but I do recommend reading it anyways, or giving it to your attorney or whatever. I do recommend reading it if you are in the HubZone program, or even if you're in the other programs, because this particular rule affects a lot of the other programs as well. So first thing that was changed is firms now must be well, this is not an order. This is just the order that this slide puts it in. But I'm going to talk about each change, but this is not in particular order when it comes to the actual text. Okay, so HubZone, first change was that the HubZone firms must be certified at the time of offer now, including price, for any HubZone contract. Previously, there was a requirement that HubZone small businesses be certified at the time of the award of the HubZone contract, but this rule now changed that. And so if you're a HubZone firm, you want to put in an offer for a HubZone contract, you must be certified at the time of your offer if it includes price, if that offer includes price. So the next thing is recertification is now every 3 years instead of yearly. The rule also changed the definition of an employee, what it means to be a HubZone employee. That means that particular person has to have been a HubZone employee resident for at least 90 days and has to work at least 80 hours per month with that HubZone company in order to be considered a HubZone employee. Next thing is what it means to have a HubZone office, HubZone principal office. It means that you must hold a lease, and that lease must start 30 days before and 60 days after SBA review. There are no virtual offices allowed. But if your office is 100% telework, then 51% of your employees must live in that HubZone area. Also, you must always or also attempt to maintain a certain percent of employees. You must attempt to maintain at least 35%. There is a 1-year grace period if you drop to 20, but by that 1-year grace period, you have to go back up to at least 35%. Next slide, please. Okay, so other things in that SBA rule affected some of our other programs, including our size programs. So we've consolidated our recertification rules into one regulation, 125.12, CFR 125.12. And this particular consolidation may affect small businesses that choose to merge or be acquired by another company. This rule requires merged or acquired small businesses to recertify. This is a major change because if your recertification determines that you are no longer small, that may take you out of the other than small status. So in other words, so that this means that your small business status could change on the contract if after the merger or acquisition, you are no longer considered small and you no longer have that status as a result of the merger or the acquisition with another business. Next, we also made eligibility requirements consistent across all of the small business programs. And you can see those full bullet points there relating to that, the consistent ownership and control criteria, the 6 extraordinary circumstances, the uniform treatment of community property, we've removed the 90-day waiting period to reply after you've been found to be you've been decertified or found to be outside of the not meeting the requirements of the certification process. So we've kind of aligned it across all the boards. One big change here is the extraordinary circumstance exceptions for affiliation and control. This is essentially just a list of authorities that minority shareholders of your company can hold, and they can hold this type of power without creating this idea of having negative control or having ownership control over over your business. And there are 6 that have been proposed and turned into the rule. Okay, so this rule also allows a procuring agency to look at some past performance at the dollar value below what would be required for a joint venture, mentor partner, or of an individual offerer. So last year we had essentially what this comes from is last year we had meetings with the public, small business contractors all came to our office, and all over the world we had meetings with small business partners relating to contracts and MAC contracts. And SBA came to an understanding that some small businesses, although they're capable, although they have the innovation, although they have the ability, they sometimes do not have the past performance and experience they need on the individual level to successfully compete for some of these large contracts. So what we did here with this particular rule is that we're pretty much allowing procuring agencies to have that discretion of whether or not they want to consider past performance at the dollar value below the level that was below the level that was stated on the solicitation. So we're hoping that this change in the particular evaluation process, where we're creating more leniency in reviewing past performances, we're hoping that this change in the evaluation process will resolve some of the competition issues that a lot of small businesses are dealing with. And that's related to the last bullet point, joint venture and mentor protege past performance evaluation. Next slide, please. So next we have the 8A program changes that came out of this rule. The next 2 slides here detail all of those changes. It is pretty much outlines everything for your 8A program that you can expect or that did come out of this rule back last year. The major changes to look at in this slide is the increase of ownership percentages from oh, sorry. I'm looking at the questions. I don't know if I should answer some of them now because we have a lot to. Yeah, because we're going to
go
want
to answer some of them now, because some of them do go back to HubZone, WOSB, and I think somebody is mixing up one of these. So if you want to address these now, I can go back.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah.
I was wondering what you were looking at. So, all right. Hang on. All right, Will Davis, before I forget, who can help us with the 8A application? Will, both Jill and I are BOS's, Business Opportunity Specialists, and we work with 8A firms in our district. I'll be happy to put my contact information in the chat, and I can follow up with you or you can email me and I can follow up and set up something to go over that with you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Shonda, I also have put him in touch with one of our counselors.
Oh, okay, awesome. Great. Thank you, Sharon. Latrivia, how does a small woman-owned business get certified or apply for a SBA loan? And I can answer that if you want me to, Kumi, because that's not really in alignment with what you're presenting. But as a small woman-owned small business, if you are trying to get certified as a WOSB, a woman-owned small business, or an EDWOSB, economically disadvantaged small business, there's a new platform, MySBA Certifications. And I'll put in the chat once we finish going through the questions where you can apply. In addition, Sharon, can you connect or send Latrivia information so that she can connect with an Apex counselor? And they can assist also with that certification on, again, MySBA Certifications. And as far as a loan, an SBA loan, Latrivia, I will send or post in the chat information for one of our SBA LRSs, lending relations specialists, who deal specifically with loans. Great questions. Kim McNeil, since HubZone is not allowing virtual offices, will that carry over to other SBA classifications? Do you mean certifications for geographic requirements on solicitations?
So the short answer to that right now is no, because HubZone is a specifically different program in that it's you're supposed to be the point of the HubZone program is that we're helping underutilized areas. So our goal at SBA is to make sure that, if you're a HubZone company, you're actually helping this area that you're claiming to live in or work in or be in. So that is why that particular no virtual offices was put in this particular rule for HubZone. But as of right now, I don't think that they're going to implement that in any of the other SBA programs.
Okay, great. Thank you. Terry Sharp's question. If I submitted through the new system, the MySBA certification system on January 9th, 2025, you are saying I cannot become a WOSB. I am not understanding the guidance you spoke about after 2022. I think, Terry, you're confusing WOSB program with the SDVOSB, Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business Program. So the guidance she was giving about December 22nd was for service disabled veteran-owned small businesses, not woman-owned. And I believe that was for self-certification for the service disabled veteran-owned. They had up until December 22nd to self-certify, but that did not apply to WOSB.
100%. It does not apply to WOSB at all.
Well, and so I just want to, and so if they miss that December 22nd deadline for SDVOSB, does that just mean they have to go into the MySBA certification portal and apply there for the status for service disabled veteran owned small business?
Yes.
Like the official
Not the
certification.
status. They'll have to go there to apply. Yeah.
So it's not as if their chances of becoming certified are gone. It's just the self-certification is gone. They'll have to go in and get officially certified through MySBA certifications.
100% correct. 100% correct. And they could still try to get contracts if they want to, but like I said, the incentive to actually, give them an award is going to be extremely low because they don't have that certification. Any other questions?
Yes, and that makes sense. My apologies. All right, my apologies. Can you offer what Terry, can you offer what the turnaround time is currently for certification? We will go over information about MySBA certifications once she finishes with the legislative updates. So we'll go over that, yes, here shortly. So just give us a few minutes and we'll go over that. Okay, great. I think that we are up to date with the questions so far.
Perfect. Okay, great. I'm glad we went over those because I didn't want them to just pile up and then have to keep going.
I was wondering why you were stopping and looking and I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it was, good that we addressed them now. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And if you see a question that kind of looks pressing, like that WASB and SDVOSB question, you can interrupt me and we can clarify on that because
Okay.
that was a very important clarification that needed
Okay, sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, let's keep going here. So, this rule also included a lot of changes to the 8A program. And like I said, the next two slides detail all of those changes. And the main one to look at here is the increase of ownership percentages for the disadvantaged individual in your firm. So if you are, in an 8A program and your firm is 90%. It used to be that your firm had to only be 10% owned by a non-disadvantaged individual, but that has been increased to 20%. So now you can have a partner in your firm that has 20% ownership, and that won't, that won't take you out of the 8A program in any way. And this is only in the development stage of the company, I would note. In the transitional stage of the 8A firm, you can have a non-disadvantaged individual own up to 30% of your company, of your 8A firm. This rule also eliminates the requirement for professional licenses. And something I talked about earlier, it details the extraordinary circumstances that can lead to negative control by minority shareholders. So we talked about this idea of, there's a list of extraordinary circumstances that your partner in your firm or your non-disadvantaged individual in your firm can do that will not lead to what's called negative control, what's called ownership, what's considered taking ownership control. For example, this is idea of legislation, or there's this idea of litigation. One of the extraordinary circumstances is initiating legislation, or I'm sorry, I keep saying legislation, initiating litigation. Does that mean that company or that individual, non-disadvantaged individual, has ownership control of your company? So moving forward to the next slide, one more changes to the 8A program include the increase in the financial statement threshold from when participants in the program are required to submit to SBA their audited annual financial statement prepared by an independent public accountant. So as you know, in an 8A program, you are required to submit financial statements, and depending on your gross annual receipts for that year, there's different different types of audits or reviews that SBA requires. So if, for example, previously if you had $10 million gross annual receipts, you had to submit to SBA an audited annual financial statement, and that statement had to be prepared by an independent public accountant. But now that amount has been increased to 20 million. So if you have 20 million in gross annual receipts, that means you need to provide SBA an edited annual financial statement. If your receipts fall between 7.5 million and 20 million, then you must submit a review by an independent auditor. And if it's anything under 7.5 million, then you can just provide an annual statement that could be prepared in-house, or it can be an independent accountant. It can be in-house or independent, but the main change here, the main thing to look at here is that the amount went from 10 million to 20 million, which is double, and that's a pretty big deal. Next thing, also, 8A firms no longer need prior approval of ownership changes if the non-disadvantaged owner continues to own 30% before or after the change. So you don't need in other words, you don't need approval from SBA if a non-disadvantaged owner of your company is changing ownership and that amount doesn't go up past 30%. Also, there's other things. If it's a transfer that's due to death or incapacity or serious illness, then you don't need prior approval for that change. Or if that non-disadvantaged ownership increase, if the participant never received an 8A contract and continues to only hold 50% ownership, in any of these instances that are bullet pointed here, if that is your case with your 8A firm, SBA you no longer need to get SBA approval for these types of ownership changes in these circumstances. Next slide, please.
Kumi,
Yes.
can I add something just really quick?
100%.
Jill,
Yeah.
can you go back to that slide with the financial statements for the 8A program? Just to clarify. So, and I know some individuals are asking about applying to the 8A program. That referring to the financial statements, that's for firms that are already in the 8A program. So the 8A program is a 9-year program. Once you are in the program, even though it is 9 years, essentially you do have to recertify every year. That recertification process is called your annual review. So if you are an 8A firm, the financial statements, the changes to that are for your annual review that happens every year.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Thank you. And you know what, since we're off mic, this question that just came through, Vanita Kelly, recertifications, one of my references received an email with an electronic signature requesting seemingly from a Mary Coleman in the email at SBA. There is no other information in the request. He is reluctant to click on the link, and I've advised him not to until I can clear this approach with the SBA. Am I right? Vanita, what recertification is this for? WOSB, SDVOSV, 8A, HubZone? You're saying you got an email from somebody at SBA and they're asking for additional information? And you can come off mic real quick.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was for the WOSB and EdWOSB. And I imagine that that's what they're asking for, is someone who can verify as a reference, but again, it doesn't tell what it's for. It just is SBA is asking for a signature. Let me look at is asking for a signature verification. What is that? It just was suspicious. So
were you applying for the WOSB or EDWOSB certification?
Correct.
Now, was this this may be a part of the backlog applications that they've been trying to process? When did you apply?
It would have been in November I actually don't have the date right in front of me. I should have, but it was last year in 2024, fourth quarter, and the electronic signature request. A document has been sent for you to review and electronically sign. Please click the yellow View and Sign Document button below to view and sign the agreement in your web browser. It's an invite that expires in 15 days. It's from a Mary Coleman with the COLEMAN, and then the email does not have the E, and there's no other information. There's some kind of envelope. Please sign the attached forms.
Okay. I will send you my email. You can send it to me.
Okay.
And to somebody at headquarters to have them look into it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next question from a Creek Miller. How do we acquire an SBE certification? And I believe that may be, I don't know if that's small business, SBE certification. That's not a federal
I
certification.
think that's with the Department of Transportation, small business enterprise.
It may be for ODOT, one of the ones.
Yes, yeah, I think they have a small business specific to small business certification.
Yes, and that may be for the airport or something. Creek, I think that is for ODOT. It's not a federal certification or one of the SBA certification programs. We have been told that we qualify as a financially disadvantaged. How do we get that? We are certified through, I don't know what NGLCC and the other changes in administration probably means that additional
I just jumped
certifications.
in on my mic. That's for the National Gay Lesbian Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
So we're looking at massive changes in the administration, and we've been told by people within the SBA that we qualify for financially disadvantaged business, as we have for the last 35 years employed people with HIV and AIDS with, many severe medical issues. But right now we're going on just our NGLCC certification. So we're looking to make sure we're still going to be able to bid on some contracts and stuff.
Okay.
These questions.
Okay, that is not one of the certifications that we have. So I don't know with the SBE where were you trying to, what contract were you trying to bid on? Let me ask that.
We have been trying to bid on, or at least fill out for different programs, applications, and they're asking if we're a small business enterprise. Are we a certified small business enterprise? And it's not just for transportation work, but we certainly would want to bid on that, as we're printers and they use a lot of posters and stuff in transportation. And so when we fill out those applications, we only have our NGLCC certification, and that doesn't seem to be enough.
Okay, you just have to see what government entity, because there are different certifications for different government levels. What we're talking about today is for federal government. So you just need to see, is it something for federal government, state government, city government, county? Is it a quasi-government organization like a CODA or something like that? So you just need to find out what organization, what entity is asking you for certifications. And then you need to find out what certifications are given for that government or that organization at that level. Because there are different certifications for different government entities and different organizations.
And I will note, if you believe that you qualify for some of our SBA certifications, you can certainly apply at the MySBA website, MySBA Certifications website, and see if there's any certifications that your company falls under as well. And
Okay,
other contracts that open. Yeah, you're welcome.
Absolutely. And then those certifications will be good for the federal level. I know sometimes some other government entities, like I believe our county, they don't have certifications, but they may honor whatever certifications that you have. So you just may need to check wherever you're applying and what they're looking for.
Shonda, I just wanted to add, like at the federal level, like small business is a self-certification. So even though you're saying, oh, all I have is the NGLCC designation, 23% of business is set aside for small business at the federal level, and small business is a self-certification through your registration in SAM. So, I mean, just a lot of businesses will say, I don't have it, I'm not qualified for any of these. Why should I even pursue government? But 23% of all business is set aside for small business at the federal level. And you just never know. So just because you're not qualified, you may not be qualified for one of these, doesn't mean that you shouldn't see what opportunities there might be just through being a small business.
Absolutely.
100%. I agree. 100%.
Great point.
Mm-hmm. Great point.
And I think that's it for the questions right now. Great questions.
Definitely great questions. I like this. This is great. I like the questions and people coming off mic. I like that too. Okay, so I think we've covered everything that I had to talk about on this slide. We get next slide. Did we go over this? No. Okay, so this one, this is just a final rule that we put out back in August and again in September. We just wanted to clarify when it came to the hub zone rule that it doesn't eliminate or restrict affiliations that are available under our mentor protege joint venture programs. And we wanted to clarify that it doesn't change the hub zone price evaluation preferences for for JVs or joint ventures that are formed under the mentor protege program. So that was just something we needed to clarify because there was a lot of questions on the effects of this hub zone rule on the mentor protege joint ventures. Next slide, please. So, so this is our rule of two rule that we put out back October 28th. I mentioned it earlier. It kind of goes back to the White House memo that we received on increasing small business participation in MAC contracts. So so the general principle of this rule of two essentially is that if you as a contracting officer have a contract order where there are two or more small businesses that can perform that contract order, that it must be set aside for small business. There are differing opinions on when to apply the rule of two, and this has been going on in the courts, and it's been an issue of jurisdiction and which courts actually have jurisdiction over these particular types of protest and this rule to set aside. So our rule here, or our proposed rule here, really aim to resolve that conflict between courts. And SBA is predicting that this change could potentially increase the annual small business contracting in general by $6 billion. And of course, $6 billion to us sounds like a lot of money, but this is only 1% of government contract spending, which is $600 billion. So what we just want to make sure is that, small businesses are also getting a little bit of this large government contracting budget. And we're also hoping to increase the number of small business entrants that are, looking to really get into working with the federal government. We have seen a drastic decline over the last few years in small business participation in government contracting in general. So our goal with this rule is to really increase the opportunities that small businesses can have. So if agencies are, if we're able to get this proposed rule to be issued into a final rule, agencies are then going to be required to set aside contracts if they're able in their market research stage, if they're able to see that two or more small businesses can do the job, they will be required as the agencies to set that aside. And this applies to orders above the micro purchase threshold. But there would be an exception to federally scheduled contracts, and there is a fair opportunity exception as well. So there are a few exceptions to this rule of two, but overall, we're still expecting, once we have the final rule, we're projecting that this would increase the number of small business participation and opportunities. We have received comments from the public. Comments were due January 24th, and the comment period is closed. So right now we're just reviewing all of that, and we are, considering it and looking at it and hoping that we can get a final rule out. There's no projected date on a final rule on this. Next slide, please. So another win for subcontracting, we issued a proposed rule for our subcontracting program last year, December 19th of last year. This rule first comes out, the main reason we came up with this proposed rule was because we received guidance from the NDAA for FY24 that required for us to make a change to the subcontracting program. And so we took that opportunity to also find ways to improve the subcontracting program in general. Congress wanted us from the NDAA, Congress wanted us to shorten the time it takes for a prime contractor to notify a contracting officer of any late payments it will make to a subcontractor. So the timeline used to be 90 days, but now with this proposed rule, we intend to change it to 30 days. So what this means is if you are subcontracting from a prime contractor and that prime contractor knows that he or she will be late with making payments to you as a subcontractor by more than 30 days, they are required to notify the contracting officer by that they will be late by more than 30 days. So there's more pressure on the there's more pressure on the prime contractor to pay subcontractors. Essentially, what is the goal here is to make sure that prime subcontractors are getting paid. This change also requires the prime to cooperate with the contracting officer to ensure that, the subcontractor is paid. If late or not, the prime is required to continue to cooperate with and work with the CO and work with the subcontractor until all payments are made. And another interesting thing is a contracting officer has a right, it's discretionary, of course, but he or she has a right to modify the prime contractor's past performance as a result of their late payments to the subcontractor. So this is all the changes that Congress wanted us to make with subcontracting. It's really putting a lot of, pressure to make sure that these prime contractors are paying, subcontractors, which tend to be small businesses. Other changes, these changes are ones that here at SBA we've looked into and thought that it was best to implement. One of the changes is relating to SSR reports that must be submitted relating to subcontracting. This rule would require contractors to submit these particular reports per ordering agency. So per agency that you've won a contract with from a multiple agency MAC award. So if, for example, if you as a company won an award from one particular ordering agency, for example, let's use small business, for example, as an agency. You won a contract from small business and you won a contract from NASA, for example. But the ordering agency vehicle, the MAC contract came from GSA. You would be required to submit a SSR report, ordering report, for both of the ordering agencies, SBA and NASA, in this particular example. And in this particular proposed rule, we're giving contractors an additional 15 days to actually submit these reports because we know that now they will be submitting more than one. It used to be that you only submit one. But what SBA wants to do here is really keep track of which of these ordering agencies should be getting credit for subcontracting and contracts. And so here we're just trying to keep track of these reports, keep track of which agencies should be getting credit. Next is contractors must submit these particular SSR reports to the agency level. And another major change was that it can be signed, these reports can be signed by anyone in the management office that has understanding of the procurement process. So currently, the rule says that only the president can sign the reports. And there's been a lot of complaints that the president can be difficult to reach. The president may not have an understanding of, the procurement process of what's going on, and that can create delays. So what we wanted to do here with this particular proposed rule is to have it so that anyone at the agency, anyone in the management office, the president, CEO, vice president, someone in the management office that has understanding of procurement can sign these SSR reports. Other things in this subcontracting plan change, is to allow prime contractors the ability to use a subcontractor's primary NAICS code to classify their size. And this is only in relation to commercial subcontracting plans, contracts that are below the micro purchase threshold, and indirect cost contracts that do not already have a NAICS code attached to it. Comments on this proposed rule are due February 18th. So in a couple of weeks. And so if you want to take a look at it, and if you had a comment on it, it's open to the public to read and comment on now until February 18th. Next slide, please. Okay, so MySBA certifications. I am going to touch on this briefly. I know Shonda has a presentation on this, so I won't spend too much time here. But of course, our goal was to streamline the certification process, and we've created and launched what's called the MySBA Certifications website. Previously, SBA small business certification programs ran on 4 different separate systems and different distinct applications, different distinct compliance requirements, review procedures. Everything was different depending on which program you wanted to apply for. If you qualified for SDVO, if you qualified as a WASB and you qualified as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, you had to go through 2 application processes. But now what we did was we wanted to put it all into one system where you apply with one application, you use all your same documents, and almost nearly all the same compliance requirements. And so that we're hoping that this streamlines the process for everyone and makes it easier for everyone. Some statistics I have now is, one, SBA cleared the backlog of applications to certify small businesses in this single year of 18,219. That's just some data I wanted to put out there. And this is one single year record, and which is a nearly 40% increase. So we've cleared a lot of backlog, in other words, of these applications. We're working, or SBA headquarters, we're clearing backlog, we're getting things done. And this website right now is active. It allows small businesses to apply one time, one application, and it also provides resources to help you win contracts. So it's not just an application database, it's also a resource tool for you. As of today, we have more than 1,300 applications that have been reviewed and approved through the MySBA certification website. So we're using it, it's working, it's getting there. A few things to note: recertification. If you're already, a certified company, you cannot recertify through MySBA certifications yet, but that is something that we intend to make available in the near future. Next slide, please. We also have created within our particular office at SBA, the Policy Liaison Office, we ourselves also created a website that is active now called GovCon Match. It is essentially a machine learning predictive model website that works to enhance federal contracting opportunities for you as a small business. How it works is that the website reviews years of historical government contracts, and the data and the contracts, or the data and the different solicitations and the different issued contracts and awardees. And what that program does, or what this machine learning program does, is it determines, based on the information that you provide, which top 20 agencies are most likely to contract with your small business. Like I said, this website is active now. You can click on the link and it will take you directly to the website. It is free and available to the public. How you use it is by providing as much information as possible about your small business. And then the program will generate is a list of 20 agencies in order by most likely to least likely. And it will also give you a direct link to that agency's website, so that get more information, and you can see if there's things that your services or products that you provide now that you can start providing to these federal agencies. This website stems from an initiative that came out of the previous administration to promote more federal contracting opportunities for small businesses. And, I'm really excited about this particular website because it came directly out of our office. It was an idea that was created and produced within our office, and we were able to launch it to the public. Next slide, please. So that concludes all the SBA updates. Now we're talking about the updates from FAR, but before we go into detail there, do we have any questions related to SBA's regulatory updates and changes?
We do, and this is a question from Halima Shafiq. Hello, Halima. Happy New Year. Good to see that you're on the webinar.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. If you're already certified as SDVOSB with SBA and need to recertify as WOSB next month, are you supposed to use the MySBA Certification site?
So if you've never certified as a WOSB ever, you have to use the site. If you've never certified as a WOSB before.
I was previously certified as WOSB.
Oh, if you were previously certified, then you have to go through the traditional recertification process for WOSB as of now. That system will not be able to work with recertifications. So if you've ever been certified, or if you are looking to recertify on any of the programs, you have to go through the traditional channels of recertification for now. If you want to get into a new program, you're already certified as WOSB, and you want to get into a new program, you think you'll qualify for the 8A program, you can go through the MySBA certification process.
Okay, so if I do want to apply, I have to recert for WOSB, and I want to apply for 8A, I'm going to the traditional site to recertify for WOSB and then going to the new site for 8A?
And
no.
Wait, say that again? No, go ahead.
Repeat that, Helena.
Yeah.
Sure. If I am recertifying for WOSB, but I'm a new application for 8A, am I going to the traditional site for WOSB recertification and the new site for 8A certification?
1 second. I just want to confirm that.
I think there may be a pause on the recertifications for WOSB because they're still focusing on the backlog and then also the new certifications. I can email. I was talking to somebody at headquarters this morning. I can email and find out about, but I thought that they were pausing the recertifications for WOSB and EDWOSB.
I believe that's correct, but I was given a letter from SBA saying I could reapply in February of this year.
So we are working on the backlog. And the meeting we had, it looked like we were done with the backlog from the last meeting I had, but of course things are always changing. So if you did receive a letter that say you could recertify, I would recommend that you to go ahead and move forward with that recertification process. What I want to check before is to make sure that my certification is something that you can do for the 8A program. Just check. You're asking if you can, you want to be in the 8A program, you want to see if you can use my certification for that. Or if you want to do, and the answer to that would be yes. If you have never applied to be part of the 8A program before, because this would be a new application, you can apply for the 8A program through But before I say that, let me just make sure. Yes, yeah, you can apply for the new AA program through MySBA Certifications because this would be a new application. You're not already in the program. You don't have any, actually, the program is a one-time program anyways, so you can only really apply and be in it one time. So you can use that website to go through the AA program. But if you're looking for recertifications, that's not available right now for MySBA certifications yet.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers. Thank you so much.
We
Did
do
anyone
have another
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any 8A special programs that will allow you to extend the program past 9 years?
Oh, like, is there anything coming out of SBA on that? Not yet, or no, not even not yet. No, we haven't talked about that. There's nothing coming out of Congress about that. There's nothing coming out of the White House about that. The 9 years is how it's been for many years now. And I don't see any of that. There's nothing in the forecast that says that that's going to change.
That is correct. Yesterday on a BOS call that we had, we did receive information that if there is a firm that's currently in the 8A program and they happen to be in an area that has been declared as a disaster area, i.e. LA, they were impacted by the fires that were out in the LA area. They were impacted by the tornadoes or any of the flooding situation. And if your area was considered a disaster area, you can apply to be temporarily suspended from the program. And they will allow that for up to 1 year. And that 1 year will start from the time that the area was claimed as a disaster area. So if the governor said, okay, this is a disaster area as of January 1st, then you can work with your BOS and ask if you can get a suspension from the program. But it will start from whatever day that disaster was declared, and you will have up to a year. And then in that instance, you will have an additional year. But as it relates to the regular program, it's just the 9 years. Now, there are some firms that are in the program as a result of COVID. They did get an extra year, but that's, of course, an anomaly. But as Kumi said, they're not making any other extensions to the program. There is another question that has come through. Lewis Johnson, I do not have access to the slide deck. I went to govcon.com and tried to search GovCon match with no results. What is the proper link for GovCon match?
I could put that link into the chat.
Okay. Okay, great.
1 second, please.
I'm glad you talked about that, Kumi, because this is the first I've heard of GovCon. So
Me too.
yeah, that's we knew about bid speed, but not GovCon. So
Yeah,
we'll be taking a look at that too.
Yeah, it just came out last month. Or maybe even this year. We've been looking at it for a while now, and yeah, it came out of one of the data scientists in our office. Did the link work? Is it working?
Yes, I just clicked on it.
Perfect. Yes.
Wow, wonderful. See, we always learn things. In addition to small businesses, we always get educated as well. So awesome. Thank you.
Perfect.
So is this is developed by SBA?
Yes.
Or is this okay? Look at
Yes.
us.
And this is just specifically for our small businesses, or can any small business log on to the website and utilize it?
Yeah, it's a public database. Anyone can go through it and utilize it. Even if you're not even if you look through, you could be a corporation, you could be a LLC, LLP, service provider. It's for anyone who has a business and wants to see if they qualify for any of the agency programs. If you look, also there's a business feature that you can type in or put in which if you're under any of our programs, you can put in, I'm under women owned, I'm under service disabled, things like that. Put in the NAICS code that you're under or some NAICS codes that you use, your services,
I
your
just opened it.
Perfect.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I'm
Oh,
over here.
hey,
Even
wonderful.
better. Perfect. Yes. So as I was saying, you can put in, if you click an option, you can choose your business. We can even go through a test run here. If you put in
Yeah.
partnership, for example, or put in click any of them, partnership, that's fine. And then you put it in women-owned small business or 8A, let's do 8A firm actually. And then put in your zip code, an Ohio zip code is preferred. You don't have to put a NAICS code, and as much information as you have as possible is always better. So if you do have a NAICS code in mind, you can put it, but put in your zip code, the services, goods or services. Are you veteran owned or service disabled owned? And if you
Make
are
up a
not,
next,
you can,
Jill.
Put
Let's just
one.
say, yeah.
and if you are not veteran owned or service disabled, then you can leave that option blank. And then any contracts if you had in the last few years.
No, let's say we're new.
All right.
Yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
Look at that.
yeah, so that's the 20 contract, and also there's a percentage of the sorry.
No, I was going to say, Jill, can you click on one of the agencies to see when you click on it, where will it take
So
you?
yeah, so when I put a zip code and Ohio zip code in here, does that mean it should be like opportunities that are around Ohio?
Opportunities that are not just around Ohio, but Ohio has worked with you before, right? Or they've worked with someone from Ohio before, if that makes sense. Like they've contracted with maybe a firm that was in Ohio, if they have opportunities in Ohio, it can mean anything. It could be a range of everything. This connection isn't
I think
private.
The our security.
it's our,
Um,
yeah.
okay. Can we go to any other links to see
I
if,
don't think
because
so. I think our,
I can try an undo Z-scaler.
oh,
I see.
that may
Uh,
work. That may work,
let's
Jill.
go ahead
Yeah.
and try
There
that.
are firewalls. They put up extra
Oh,
firewalls for some things.
Continue.
But yeah, that may work. Undo Zscaler.
yeah. Because what it should do is take you to OzTheBoo or directly to their website.
Oh, not there. Okay, hang on. Let's try that again. I turned my Z-scaler off. Oh, no, it's not doing anything. Oh,
It's
there it goes.
thinking. It's thinking.
All right.
Yeah. So what it'll do is it'll take you to either the website or the OzTheBoo or what we really mainly wanted to do was put you in a website that you can find some information, any type of information. So we wanted to put you into their small business specific website. If they have a small business specialist, if they have an OzTheBoo website, if they have mentor protege website, we wanted to click on it. I'm in Homeland Security right now. Click on,
Oh, you're in Homeland Security? Okay.
yeah, I just clicked on small business. Yeah,
Okay,
so.
let's go. Where is it? I don't see Homeland Security.
Oh, I I did my own search and
Okay, that's
Homeland
fine.
Security
Oh,
came, Homeland Security came
Okay.
up for me.
oh, there it is.
Yeah, so yeah, they'll put you, so
What?
sorry.
No, go ahead. I just
Oh
think
yes.
that's cool.
Yeah, so the whole goal here is to put small businesses, any business, but specifically small businesses, get them to know the agency, get them started in the right direction. So they know, which department or which agency they're most likely to contract with. For example, if you're on SAM.gov and you're looking through, you can do some research on the State Department, if the State Department is in your top 10 or top 20, and see if your services fit their services. If your NAICS code fits their NAICS code, then that means that what you're providing they want or they need. So, our goal was to just get small businesses put them in the right direction and put them in front of the right agency and get them to get involved in the right agency. And then now you have to do your own work. You have to, foot the pavement and start looking at some of their contracts, looking at some of their matching the matching events, talking to the right people, getting some contacts and things like that. So that was the point of the website.
Okay, and then just like making sure they read like this section here too. Because this takes them to the small business pages. It doesn't lead them to, pardon me, active contracts. It gives them an opportunity to reach out to small business offices and things like that. That's where education with Apex Accelerator is still really important, so they understand what to do with this. But also like having the information here, agency IDs can put into SAM, filter by the agency. So it's good. It gives a lot of information in one place for people. But also explaining like clicking on this doesn't take you to active contracts. It takes you to like the small business page, which will get you to the procurement forecast and blah, blah, blah type of thing. But I think it's neat.
Thank you for clarifying that. It does not take you to active contracts. You know, sam.gov is for, we'll just be repeating the process of that. No, it's just you know, trying to be another resource tool for small
No,
businesses.
I think it's cool. Right, let me hit share again and get back over here. Is that right? Do you see the right screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. So now we're gonna end. Ooh, we got 15 minutes. Okay, time flies. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and end with our FAR council or our FAR changes. So as you know, FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulation, are the rules for our government contracting in the United States, federal government contracting in the United States. They all must follow the regulations in the FAR. SBA and the FAR Council work very closely together, but we are two separate entities. And the role in our office at SBA is to assist the FAR to make sure that their regulatory changes are up to date with the regulatory changes that we have over at SBA side. So I'm saying all that to essentially say the FAR comes after SBA. They tend to be a little bit late on our regulations because we changed them. For example, if we changed them this year, you won't see that change implemented in FAR for another few months. So that just gives you an idea of why we work so closely with the FAR. And you're going to see in this presentation some changes that were already implemented in SBA a while ago that are just not being implemented in the FAR. Some of them. This one is particularly just related to the inflation adjustment threshold. So every 5 years, FAR Council is required to update the contract amount thresholds, based on information, statistics, numbers that they receive. And this is a major change, actually. The FAR, in this particular change, they've decided to increase the simplified acquisition threshold from 250,000 to 350,000, which is a huge jump. In my opinion, it's been 250 for a few years now. So to have this go up by $100,000 is a major change. And I will note this is just a proposed rule for now, but the final rule you can expect to come out this year. And I'm not going to go through all of these numbers. You have the slide for that, but I want to summarize by saying that if you do look at this chart, you see that a lot of the threshold dollar amounts have increased for our SBA programs. So, that just means more money being allocated to small businesses and our SBA small business programs. Next slide, please. So the DFARs, kind of similar to FAR, of course, but it's only for defense contracts. They issued their final rule when it comes to past performance for small business affiliates. So this was a requirement. This was a change they were required to do out of the NDAA that came out for them last year. Why this is so important is that it's specifically important for entity-owned companies, such as the companies that are owned by Alaska Native corporations, Indian tribes, or Native Hawaiian organizations, essentially. So companies that essentially have a lot of affiliates. For example, if your entity, you may have 10, 15, or 50 subsidiaries that are all related to the same parent organization. With this change, it would allow agencies to consider the past performance, not just of your company, but of all your subsidiaries. So it's giving essentially these companies that have a lot of affiliates the opportunity to to utilize the past performance of all the subsidiaries. So that is in effect now. It was a final rule issued back in November 15th of 2024. And this, because it's DFARS, it only relates to defense contracts. Next slide, please. The FAR also issued an interim rule, final rule last year to clarify some of the current concerns that have been going on in the contracting world in general when it comes to SAM.gov registration. So this is a pretty big deal. We were very excited to see that they actually put this out because there was creating a lot of confusion in the courts. Essentially what they're saying when it comes to time, when should a company be registered in the FAR? When does their FAR registration matter when it comes to getting a contract? Is it at the offer time? Is it at the time of award? Is there duration? And so what the FAR is saying is what the FAR is clarifying that the offerer only needs to be registered in SAM.gov at the time of the offer and at the time of the award. So the time in between offer and award does not eliminate them from being a parent successful offerer, if that's the case. Before they apply for or before they submit an offer, and after they submit, after they've received the award, none of that time, they're not required to be registered in SAM.gov. Any of those times outside of the two that are specified specifically here. So let me make sure I'm saying that completely correctly, because it can get confusing, which is why we had so many different court opinions on this. So essentially what it's saying is you as a small business, if you are looking to win an award, you must be registered in SAM.gov at the time that you're submitting your offer, right? And you must have your SAM.gov, you must be registered in SAM.gov at the time that you receive your award. Those two times are vital to you receiving and maintaining your offer, right? If sometime in between then you're not registered in SAM.gov, that does not affect your ability to maintain and obtain and maintain your award. After you receive the award and you don't have a SAM.gov registration, again, does not affect your ability to obtain and maintain. Oh, sorry. Someone said. Oh.
I think he may have accidentally come off mute.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. And yeah, well, I mean, that we can end there. We can go to the next slide. Perfect. So
Right. Sorry about that. I got ahead of myself. Okay. This one.
So yeah, the FAR issued a final rule on order level protest. This kind of relates back to the category management thing I was talking about earlier, where agencies are kind of moving towards using multiple award contracts. And it's, created the question of what is a small business? Are you small at the base level or are you small at the order level? So there is a longstanding rule in SBA that once you're deemed small, you're always small, right? So there has been a lot of protest on what is considered a small business, what is considered to be small based on, is it your gross receipts? Is there a number of people? Are you small after acquisition? So, for example, protests for partial set-asides and reserves under max, protests for sorry, I'm losing myself here. Yeah, so so there's been this issue of what's considered small. So what the FAR Council did was create this rule that kind of outlines what are the three instances where you can file a status protest on someone's ability. There's someone's size, or someone's status, or someone's size, and these are the three exception. These are 3 times that you can actually bring that protest. The partial set aside and reserves under max, the order set asides for unrestricted, and the orders placed under max where representation or re-representation of your size was not required. And of course, this is longstanding. If you're going to file a protest, it has to be within 5 business days. So this order level protest rule was already implemented over on SBA side. The FAR was just getting around to it by giving us this final rule. Next slide, please. Okay, gonna try to go quickly. So this is an interim final rule that on SDVOSBs, this is again similar to what we did over SBA relating to self-certifications. All you need to know here is the self-certifications for SDVOSBs ended December 22nd of 2024. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is for the FAR changes on an 8A program. So earlier in the fiscal year of 2023, FAR issued a final rule for the 8A program on this idea of once 8A, always 8A rules, which essentially means that once a procurement is in the 8A program, once there's a procurement that's essentially set aside for the 8A program, it must remain in the 8A program unless that agency requests a release on this. And SBA at times have accepted releases, but what we look at mainly is where the procurement work go. So this FAR final rule dealt with that one exception, which is when the procurement is determined to be a new requirement. Is there a change to this particular procurement that's already in a program that would essentially mean that it can be removed from the program. But we do have some safeguards here. SBA still has the right to appeal the agency's decision, and the agency is required to notify SBA when they intend to remove this procurement from the 8A program itself. So this was just a final rule that was implemented back in October 5th of 2023 relating to procurements that are already in the 8A program itself. What was essentially happening here was that SBA wants to make sure that if an agency is saying they want to take this procurement out of the 8A program, they need to be able to have a reason for it, and SBA needs to be able to be notified and to know why they're doing that. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is another change that happened that was implemented in the FAR, but SBA already has it in their regs. Essentially, all HubZone program appeals or HubZone program protests, are now heard by the SBA Office of Hearings and Appeals. Next. Oh, and also there is another slide here that another point here that's I'm going to talk about quickly. We also have removed the HubZone representation button in SAM because we at SBA already know who's in the HubZone program. So essentially, you do not need to go and when you're in SAM.gov, you check a box that says you're a HubZone firm because we already have that list of firms. We don't need it to. We don't need you to do that in SAM. So what is happening here is they're removing that box from SAM. Your ability to check that HubZone box because we at SBA no longer need it. Next slide, please. Quickly, this is a proposed rule relating to subcontracting with Puerto Rico and other covered territories. Here, essentially, it's just providing benefits to individuals who are interested in subcontracting with Puerto Rico and the other, considered covered territories in the FAR. I'm not going to go into too much detail with this, but I will note it also clarifies that the Alaska Native corp-owned firms that are subcontractors do not have to submit subcontracting plans, even if they're considered a large business. This is only if they are a subcontractor. Next slide, please. Okay, there is a FAR proposed rule, another one on limitations of subcontracting, which recognizes some exceptions that SBA created a few years ago on what's considered similarly situated entities and permitting the exclusion of other direct costs, as well as excluding some work that has been performed outside of the United States. Next slide, please. So the last 3 slides, this one and the last 2, we can go through them. They're just a list of all the upcoming FAR proposed rules and the FAR final rules. So if you're interested in it, you see a topic that you want to go back and read, all of this will be coming down the pipe, coming out soon, that you can look into and see if it affects your firm in particular. And so I just put a list of them. It's this slide, and the next 2 slides are just a list of different things that you can expect coming out of the FAR. And I mean, next slide. Yeah. Yep, this one continued in the next slide. And those are the final rules that are coming out. And as you can see, the subcontracting with Puerto Rico and territories is coming out as a final rule. The limitations of subcontracting is also coming out as a final rule. And last slide, I think. Yep, perfect. Okay, we're on time. That concludes the presentation for today. I don't know if there are any other questions, but before I end, I just want to make a quick note. I want to say this is an amazing thing that this particular district office is doing for you guys. Our SBA headquarters were always willing and looking for ways to help and share information and share resources as much as possible. But it's not always that we're asked to do these things, or there's any request for this. So I want to take a moment to thank Shanda. I keep saying Shanda. I'm sorry.
Shonda like Honda. Shonda like Honda.
Shonda. I'm sorry.
Like Honda.
Shonda.
That's okay.
Shonda, Jill, and Sharon for this opportunity to serve you guys and to share this information, because like I said, other districts are not getting these legislative updates. It's almost very rare that we're asked to present. So I want to take a quick moment to thank them and thank them for the opportunity.
Well,
Thank you, Kumi. Yeah, we really do enjoy working together, definitely collaborating with our Apex Accelerator counselors. And I think that speaks to our passion about helping small businesses and just our district office and what we're doing in Ohio, just some of the great things. We're really here for you. We want to hear from you. And then, what do you want to know? And I think at the beginning of the year, this is always great so that you're aware of the current updates and what's going on. I know there's a quick question. I have a couple quick things to add for MySBA certifications, real quick. But Kim McNeil, are there any upcoming changes that will potentially offer certification and set-asides for ESOPs? I don't know what ESOPs. Does anybody know what ESOP is?
Employee stock ownership plans. So it's like 100% employee-owned businesses through the Department of Labor.
Yeah. So I had a slide on that last year, and there was something introduced in Congress about it, but it never got past the floor. So there was something related to that under the 8A program in particular.
Yeah, there was a pilot program. I think it was just last year or the year before, but it was only through the DoD, and that pilot program is over. So I didn't know if there was anything coming down the pike already. I mean, we're in organizations with other ESOPs to, try and push that along and lobby for that. But I didn't know if you knew of anything right off the bat.
I will say that there was definitely something introduced in the last congressional session about that. So if you were lobbying, it worked. Unfortunately, it didn't get past, the floor. So we keep track of everything. So if there is anything that comes up, we're always keeping track of things like that. And as of right now, in this new Congress, nothing has come up yet. But be on a lookout, because if they brought it up last year, it's most likely that they're going to try to bring it up again this year.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Awesome. Again, thanks so much, Kumi. A lot of great information, updates, a lot of things we didn't even know. So about the GovCon, So it's always great to listen to these. Just a couple of quick additions about my SBA certifications. And I think this speaks to one of the questions that was asked earlier. What's the typical processing time for an application? With the new system, on average, the processing time is typically about 90 days. It could be a little less, it could be a little more. But again, remember, they are processing multiple applications. So if you qualify or if you're eligible for WOSB, HubZone, and 8A, they're going to be processing that application for all three. And what they're going to do at the same time, they're not going to make a determination. Let's just say they determine you do qualify for HubZone, but they're still processing for 8A and WOSB. They're not going to tell you, okay, you qualify for HubZone, but wait, we're still, working on the process for your WOSB and 8A. They will let you know all three, the status for all three at the same time. So again, on average, it does take about 90 days. When you apply in the system, whatever certifications you're eligible for, once it asks you a series of questions, it will let you know what you're eligible for, and you can check the boxes of what certifications that you do want to apply for, and then that's what they're going to process your application for. And that's it about now. There's still a couple kinks in the system that they're working through. One great feature that they didn't have with the former certifications that there is a help desk, and they're really encouraging you to use the help desk. I actually helped a small business last week with their SDVOSV certification, and I called the help desk, let them know I was from a district office. Somebody answered right away, and they were able to help. So if you run into an issue or problem, please utilize the help desk. It will, they have somebody to man it, and I think it will be a great resource. I think what we may do is we may provide a training on MySBA certifications in a couple of months once they've worked through implementing some of the changes that once they work through some of the couple of kinks that they have, and then they're also going to adapt the recertification. So if you're already certified in any of the HubZone, WSB, 8A, the recertifications, they're going to add that. So we may be doing a training in a couple months down the road and inviting somebody from headquarters to talk about that. Again, the recording link and the slides will be available on Apex Accelerator's website. It will typically take about a week for the recording link to be finalized and posted. So just stay tuned for that next week. I don't see any other questions. Again, thank you for everybody's time. Jill or Sharon, I did not look. Next month's training for February, what are we doing next month?
I know what we're doing in March.
Okay, let me.
We have the 8A roundtable on February 14th. So I don't know if we have.
Let me see. Let me look on my calendar real quick.
I have February 19, meet your federal resource partners.
There you go.
There you
All right.
Thank you, Sharon. Our next training, February 19th, meet your federal resource partners. So we'll have some resources from federal agencies. We did a meet your local resource partners in October, which was real successful. So stay tuned, log in, register for that. And just stay tuned for all of the trainings that we have planned for this year. An update early on, the Ohio Business Matchmaker is going to be a little early this year. It's going to be April 22nd and 23rd. Is that correct, Jill?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, April 22nd and 23rd for the Ohio Business Matchmaker. That's always in Dayton at Wright State University. So registration is up, I believe. So it's always a great, wonderful training that we've been doing for the last 18, 19 years. I think that's it. You can go to Apex Accelerator's website to register for any upcoming trainings. They're posted. And also the additional trainings that they put on all throughout the state. Want to thank you for your time. It's only 6 minutes over. This was great. Again, Kumi, thank you so much for all the wealth of information that you shared, and then allowing us to have the interaction and dialogue from the participants, and even showing the GovCom website. I think that's wonderful. Thank everybody for their time. Please stay warm, and hopefully you'll join us in the future for our upcoming webinars. Have a great day.
Thank you.